The Brewhouse was created to capture and share with you the long history of the Genesee Brewery, but the brewery itself isn't half as interesting as the beer and the people who make it. Visit GeneseeBrewhouse.com.
Welcome to the Rochester Press Box. I'm Tariq Spence, filling in for Bill Pucko, being brought to you by Genesee Brewhouse. Pat Duffy, good to see you.
Great to see you. Are we fist bumping? We're not
That's
handshaking?
this week. Next week might be elbow,
Okay.
and then after that, who knows?
Okay.
Jenna, thanks for joining us. Can we shake hands?
I was to say, we'll shake.
There it is. It's all good.
You have more germs.
Yeah, I'm meeting her for the first time.
All right, that's fine.
Plus, you admit not to washing your hands. Which brings us to the biggest concern going on right now involving the NBA, NHL, and every other sport there is, Major League Baseball, Major League Soccer. Media has changed it all. Duffy, where do we start here? Cancellation of championship games. Hopefully they still have Selection Sunday and the tournament, but that's up in the air.
Well, as of now, it's just the Ivy League that canceled their tournament, so who cares? But, no, I mean, really.
Yeah, you're right.
Listen,
I wasn't going to watch it.
I feel for the guys, but you're going to send Yale off. Like, okay, we're going to find out somebody's going to lose in the first round, and that's the end of it. Okay, fantastic. It's interesting that the Ivy League is the one that pulled the trigger first because they're the ones that make the least amount of money. Like, they don't care about athletics. They don't have athletic scholarships. Like, you can see they legitimately care about the safety of their fans and employees of the arenas and their students. It's when you get to the big-time stuff, the ACC and the Big Ten and the SEC, who are going to profit off of these tournaments. Why are they waiting so long to do this stuff in places that are hotter beds than Massachusetts, where most of the stuff would have happened for the Ivy League?
I don't know. Jenna, are you worried about this?
I mean, I think it's unprecedented what we're seeing right now. And it's interesting, too, because we don't really know all that much about this virus in terms of the contagion point of, like, how it spreads and things like that. We know it's obviously a huge issue, but people are now having to make the decision. And like you said, like the Ivy League, they're not making a lot of money. I can see why they were able to pull the thread or pull out on doing something like this. But at the same point, I mean, these players, especially the seniors, I feel for them because they're not going to be able to play again. Their seasons are over. They had that chance at the NCAA tournament that they all work for, and then to have the rug pulled out from under them, that's tough.
Yeah, I feel really bad that they don't get to play basketball anymore when they go on to make $500,000 as doctors and stockbrokers.
Not all of them.
Not all of them.
Yeah, no, I got a buddy who's an Ivy League guy. He's living in a box outside. It's weird. It's a weird thing.
My God. I get what you're saying, but this could be all across the nation in terms of them canceling conference tournaments. And when you look at that, in terms of that, would you want your season to end that quickly?
No, but I also don't want to spread what could be potentially a pandemic in America.
Then I think you don't have the fans there. I think if you want to make that decision, then you don't have the fans there, but you at least let the guys decide, hey, I want to play. I want to take on that risk.
Referees fly commercial. Doctors fly commercial. All of these people have one-on-one contact with these players, right? There are referees that live here in Rochester. There are referees that live in New York City. There are referees that live in D.C. Those people will have one-on-one contact with these kids, which are then going to go back to campus and potentially continue to spread it. Listen, I don't like it as much as anybody else doesn't like it, but it makes sense as to why you should do this. And I never get to play again might not be a good enough reason to keep this thing going.
I get that, but going off of that, what do you think then? Do you think that we should just blanket cancel conference tournaments?
I know I'm not smart, okay? I know that when it comes to medical
Is that
stuff,
on tape? Is that actually been recorded?
my
Okay.
wife is happy to tell anybody who's listening. No, but like in all honesty, I know that I don't have answers to this. So if someone says I have experience and this is a bad idea and we should do this, I'm apt to listen to what they have to say.
I didn't do that. I just was curious because we've never seen this before.
I don't think we're going to run into the situation where we're concerned about sort of whether the games are played. I think they'll go to streaming. I think this will be done with streaming and then going to different locations to stream these games. But there is an economic factor where there are a lot of people that rely on the parking. They rely on the vendors. They rely on the hotel. They rely on the flying. They rely on all of that could take an economic turn for the worse.
Listen, you're 100% right. And I feel for those people that could miss paychecks. I feel for those people who rely on this thing as a once-a-year income stuff. But the counterpoint to that, the argument I just made about danger, those people that are working in the concession stands and taking parking money are 1,000 times more at risk to get sick than the folks that are there, right? I mean, again, It's an unprecedented thing, and it's uncomfortable because we're not used to it, because in this country, we prioritize sports way ahead of a lot of other things, right? Like, let's be real. What is this thing? It doesn't matter. It's an amateur basketball tournament.
Not at the money that they spend on it.
Well, then maybe it's not amateur anymore.
Yeah.
Which has been debated at this table many times before. This portion of the Rochester Press Box being brought to you by Genesee Brewhouse. Coming up next, Buffalo Bills.
The Press Box is brought to you in part by Bay & Goodman Pizza, a local Rochester favorite. Corner of North Winton and Browncroft, Bay & Goodman Pizza.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box being brought to you by the Genesee Brewhouse. All right, the Buffalo Bills making some moves. Josh Norman, we're looking at $6 million with incentives, maybe 8?
Yeah, drop in the bucket, $6 million. You got a guy that was an All-Pro in 2015. He's got a great history up until a season and a half of playing well. And you need a corner to play opposite Tre'Davious White, Levi Wallace, although he's performed admirably, maybe in over his head. He played really well in McDermott's defense.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario, you paid $6 million for a guy that's going to walk a training camp.
And I think Brandon Beane has kind of earned the right to make these types of deals. I thought he's been able to bring in good guys for a relatively cheaper price. Josh Norman, he has the caliber in terms of he's a guy that has gotten paid. Obviously, the last year and a half didn't really live up to that. But I think you give it a roll. I mean, Levi Wallace has shown that he can play, but he is not the answer, in my opinion, at the corner opposite Trey White. You know you have a guy like Trey White who is All-Pro. Why don't you bring in a veteran into that room like Norman and see where it goes?
Not to mention, it's a quarter of your defensive field. You got 2 All-Pro safeties over the top. Tre'Davious White might be the best corner in the NFL. You're only allowing them to throw to one spot with a guy that has history of being a very good football player.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting the Bills working on defense. I mean, that's been their staple the last season or so, and working on it and continuing going forward. Now I hear more and more defense with DJ Reader, possibly not returning to Houston. He's on the Bills' radar with Tennessee. Do you want even more defense and then go offense with the draft?
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate it. There are still question marks. There's sneaky needs of defense. You do have a defensive tackle need. Jordan Phillips is a question mark coming back. Harrison Phillips tore up his knee. We don't know what he's going to be doing. You got defensive end issues at both sides. Is Trent Murphy going to be on this roster?
Linebacker as well, with Lorenzo Alexander retiring. There are a lot of question marks, and it's funny. You do think of it, okay, the Buffalo Bills are known for their defense, Sean McDermott, Leslie Frazier, but at the same point, like Duffy is saying, there are those sneaky needs that you have to fill. And I think the biggest one is going to be replacing Lorenzo Alexander. I don't think people realize, he was 35 years old, but he was able to make his way all over the field, as well as being able to pass rush. I think he's going to be a type of player that you really need to hone in on. That, I think, is more from the draft. But a guy like DJ Reader, he would be in the rotation at defensive tackle. And that's a spot where the Bills need and like to have that depth and versatility.
Well, and going back to Lorenzo Alexander, the luxury he gave you, not only performing well playing defense, he was a guy that took up 3 roster spots. He played every single special team. He was a leader on all of those special teams. I mean, that's the kind of position where you need 3 separate guys. He was a Swiss Army knife. That's another thing we're going to have to look at. You know how McDermott loves his flexibility on dressing and not dressing people? Could be a problem this year.
Well, also the draft coming up in about another week. It's all been offense. Do you think they should go offense, defense when it comes to the draft?
I actually, in the first round, don't think they're going to go offense. I know a lot of people want the Bills to draft a wide receiver early on, and I think that they will make a play at receiver, if not taking more than one. But I think the first round, there's just so much depth at receiver for next month that I think the Bills are going to kind of wait. They're going to be able to get a little bit more return on that investment, picking a guy later on. I think they could go pass rusher with their first pick. Your face does not like that.
Well, my face doesn't like you. What I'm getting at is...
Well, no, done here.
Wow.
We were being so amicable.
You were so
you
nice.
said so many mean things to me in the break.
But that was off camera.
Jenna.
At least he washed his hands this time.
Didn't wash my hands. So what I'm getting at is, look, I mean, I like the idea of there's so much depth. We don't have to take a wide receiver in the first round. But if there's a guy there that you like and think can perform, do it. Like, I don't like this idea of, well, just, hey, we'll take something else. Like, we're finally in a spot.
I think, okay, I get that.
We're finally in a spot where you don't have to draft for need, right? So now you're going to draft for need because you don't need anything. It's the same mentality, just backwards.
I think it's who is ever highest rated on their board.
Okay.
And because of that, I think there are a lot of very high rated receivers, but there's also positions of need that the Bills could go after, and that's more a defensive guy.
I'm almost upset this segment's over. But it's being brought to you by Genesee Brewhouse. Coming up next, Like It or Not.
Here's the Press Box Trivia question, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390. Here's the Press Box Trivia answer, brought to you by Market View Liquor, where exceptional customer service meets an extensive selection. Jefferson Road at 390.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, being brought to you by the Genesee Brew House. Like it or not. All right, Jenna, there is this new thing that's going on at the University of Nebraska where they want to help their student athletes brand themselves.
Yeah.
First of its kind, what are your thoughts? Like it or not?
I think it's certainly interesting. It's so 2020, which I'm curious to see how this will play out. I'm also curious to see how they'll talk to the players specifically. Obviously, I feel like the superstars will do better, but also they're doing this for all of their athletes, both male and female. They're going to gauge what does well on social media, for them to improve their brand. I'm curious to see how that plays out, considering there's a difference between male and female, especially on social media and a lot of the posts that they make. So I'm curious to see what this will.
Interesting that it's college and branding. I thought they were supposed to be amateur.
100%, but I've said so many times on this show how it's all crap anyway. I don't want to go down that road. What I do find interesting, though, is the idea that it'll be the superstar male athletes that are going to, benefit the most from this. I disagree. I feel like there are personalities in athletes that you don't see. And when that personality shines through, those people become stars. There are athletes on Twitter right now who are superstars that you never heard of before. A guy named Paul Bissonnette. He played in the NHL. He was up and down all the time. He has a podcast now. He's beloved. He's making money. Mike Commodore, another guy who was a bit player in the NHL because of the social media and personality that he had. Those guys fly in the face of the traditional hockey player. This will fly in the face of what colleges usually want from their student athletes. You can find diamonds in the rough, people you wouldn't expect that can benefit from this.
What's interesting now is the media, and I want to get your thoughts on this, Jenna, like it or not, the fact that the media could be in a position where they might not get access to players or locker room or facilities or more going forward with this coronavirus.
I hate that. I'm terrified of that because I think it sets up a slippery slope going forward. Look, I get right now because of the coronavirus concerns the fact that people want to close the locker rooms. But I think when you close down that access and have the teams being the ones that are putting people out for the media to talk to, I just don't like that. I like being in the locker room, considering you can talk to any guy or any player that you want. And I think that's huge, especially in terms of media, because there's a lot of guys that don't want to talk after a game. But it's our job to go in there and make sure they say something. So I'm concerned about it. I get why currently, but I just worry about the future and how this will play out.
I never thought about that. Some players are not great with sort of interviews after losses. So could this shield them from that where they have to answer those questions?
Listen, here's a dirty secret that a lot of people that don't work in media know. Teams hate open locker room access. They
Absolutely.
hate the fact that you can go up to any player and talk to them and cover things that are going on. It's funny. They have no problem taking money from the average fan for tickets, but as soon as you want to ask a player something personally, they take issue. Jenna's 100% right. If this goes on and nobody makes noise about it, they're going to continue the closed locker room access. And the fans that I see on Twitter saying, good, who cares? You can ask them at the podium. You don't realize the coverage that you get from having media folks in that dressing room. This needs to happen, and we need to keep an eye on it to make sure that these teams don't go, oh, no, it's totally fine now.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what are your thoughts on trading actual announcers from network to network? Al Michaels, NBC moving over to ESPN for Monday Night Football was denied, but are we getting to the point now where we would trade media for interns to be named later?
I mean, it looks like NBC's in win now mode, right? They don't want to. No, it makes sense, right? Like, it's a valuable commodity. I don't know why ESPN thought Al Michaels was going to be on the block. Like, I would make an argument that Michaels and Collinsworth are the best play-by-play, close to Romo and Buck, or it's AB. Like, you would have just been handing a legend to work beside Peyton Manning, which was their plan. It was a stupid thing to do, although it's already happened. Al Michaels had already been traded from the Disney Corporation to NBC for the old school cartoon Oswald the Rabbit, which was the precursor to Mickey Mouse. It's a really weird thing. But I like it. I love trades. I love NHL trade deadline. I love NBA trade deadline day. More trades all the time. all the time. Let's trade Jenna right now for something else.
I would not trade Jenna, although I'm a little bit worried that you knew about Oswald. I'm a little bit, you did your research on that. I'm really...
My brain, like I said, I'm stupid because it's full of dumb stuff like Oswald the Rabbit was traded for Al Michaels.
That's okay. Yeah. Can we trade?
For this show, you knew.
Yeah.
Look at you.
I don't want to start a Twitter beef of trading Jennifer.
Okay.
This portion of the Rochester Press Box being brought to you by Genesee Brew House. Unfinished business coming up.
And now here's this week's MVP Experience Stat of the Week, brought to you by Sport Clips, where it's good to be a guy. No appointment ever needed.
And now to Eichel. He floated one.
When Girl Scout ingenuity meets Dunkin' Coffee, you get a cup of can-do. Girl Scout cookie-inspired flavors are at Dunkin'. Try Thin Mints and Coconut Caramel today. And get a medium latte or cappuccino for $2 from 2 to 6 p.m. America runs on Dunkin'.
The Red Sox are the new Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, Red Sox fans have to come to grips that they have money and they love to spend it. They always used to wag the finger at the Yankees. You know, look out for the little guy. Watch out for the small guy. Well, the Red Sox are doing exactly what the Yankees did for years. When they have an opportunity to go spend money, they do it. And I think it's great for baseball. Listen, the cable money is through the roof right now. We're seeing the Padres spending Fort Knox this offseason. The Angels, teams are spending money. The Cubs are spending money. But Boston Red Sox fans, here's a little memo. You love to spend money. You're the evil empire now, and come to grips with it.
Welcome back to the Rochester Press Box, being brought to you by the Genesee Brew House. This segment is being brought to you by Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. It's called Unfinished Business. Duffy?
What could have been? Reports surfacing late last week that Sabres general manager Jason Botterill may not be long for that job, which a lot of Sabres fans would be okay with. Up until Monday night, when the Capitals came to town and the Sabres beat one of the best teams in the NHL, and they looked really good doing it. The difference is Linus Ullmark is back from a couple-month-long injury. He looked fantastic, held the Caps to 2 goals. Not only that, Victor Olofsson, would-be Rookie of the Year, if he didn't have 2 long stretches of injury that he dealt with. When those two are in the lineup, things seem to work very, very well. We have another kid that we just traded for at the deadline, Kahun-aville. It's Kahun. He's from Pittsburgh. He looks absolutely phenomenal. I think he's got 4 points in his first 6 games as a Sabre. What I'm getting at is this. The team that Botterill put together looks really, really good. There was no depth, and it was going to be impossible to do this year because of lack of room under the salary cap. Here is my fear. If you blow out Jason Botterill, which I can't really make a good argument to keep, you're going to throw everything into flux again. There is an argument to be made for staying the course, especially when the team that he put together, when healthy, without depth, looks okay. If it's me, one more season, what do you got to lose? And I am pulling my beach chair up to Kahun-aville for next season.
Hard to top that, Jenna, but I'm sure you can.
All right, NFL free agency starts next week. Obviously, it's one of the biggest times in the NFL offseason, but don't expect the Bills to do anything crazy. Look, I know they already signed Josh Norman. That'll be coming up. But Buffalo, Brandon Beane has made it abundantly clear. He does not build through free agency. He builds through the NFL draft. He wants to sign and then develop and then re-sign his guys. So don't expect any big splashes from Buffalo or Brandon Beane in the coming weeks.
If you're a Yankee fan, you're a little bit worried. The news gets worse the closer you get to the opening day of injuries. We're not sure about Judge. We're not sure about Stanton. We're not sure now about Sanchez. What is going on with the Yankees? It involves actually wondering what happened last year. A number of players had injuries that were never taken care of. Remember the time where the Yankee fans used to make fun of the Mets fans for the injured players like Cespedes and Moore? It's called karma, baseball karma. It's a terrible thing to have, especially when the Yankees are all loaded up with pitching and hitting and they can't keep anybody on the field. The Jed Larry jokes were funny last year. They're not now, Yankee fans. It's called karma, and sometimes you got to pay that bill.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Even if nobody shows up to play, you're still winning the American League East this year. Who's going to stop them?
Themselves.
Okay, but like Toronto has to win a game.
It's very easy.
The Rays had to do Baltimore. Like they've won. They've already won the AL East.
Have they?
Write it down. As much as I hate the Yankees,
So write it down.
Yeah, the Yankees win the AL East. Nobody steps up. Nobody. And then Aaron Boone, he's gonna be standing there the whole time. Can't believe what's happening here, Aaron Boone.
Why don't you be the Baltimore Orioles?
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was just say that would be quite a spin zone.
Well, I appreciate the time you spent with us today, Jenna.
Yeah, I really appreciate being here. More so to be with you as opposed to talking to Duffy.
Well, it was great to meet you. We shook hands and everything, and let's shake hands on the
look
way
at
out.
that. Okay.
You fist bump.
Great to see you, buddy.
Oh, come
Great
on.
to see you.
Oh, jeez. Have fun and thank you. This segment being brought to you by Dunkin'. America runs on Dunkin'. That is the Rochester Press Box. Bill Puckle will return eventually to deal with him, but I'll be with you next week. Have a great day.